In my previous video, we've talked about what you might experience while microdosing psilocybin within the first 1 to 2 weeks. Now we're going to talk about some of the bigger concepts. So I have clients that are actively working with a therapist or have worked with a therapist for a long time. And there's a common experience where we have certain hamster wheels that we might go through. So I think these might be part of your default mode. There's coping mechanisms. When you get triggered or you feel a certain way, then this always happens. And there's patterns in your functioning or patterns in your personality that you may have been working with a therapist to try to get out of, and for some reason they just keep happening. For example, when some people feel lonely, maybe there's thoughts about maybe I'm not lovable, or why doesn't anybody like me? And you might theoretically know that this isn't true and these thoughts aren't helpful, but it's really hard to rid your subconscious and your mind of these patterns. So psilocybin has actually been proven to circumvent the default mode network. So the default mode network does relate to how our functions, subconscious functions are appearing, and also how we perceive ourselves. Now, when some clients that I've worked with will have worked with a therapist for a long time, and they find that there's reoccurring patterns that happen. Or you might think, man, why am I always attracted to this type of person? Even though I know I don't want it, but I seem to always somehow end up with this type of person in my sphere. So with psilocybin, while microdosing, and this can happen in bigger journeys as well, but when you're microdosing, you're giving yourself a small amount of medicine over a period of time in order for your system to have a chance to regrow new neural pathways and move through some of these patterns consciously and not just subconsciously. So what that might look like is, after about a month or three to 4 weeks of microdosing, you might find yourself in this triggering event. Maybe you got triggered and then your normal coping mechanism, the one that you wish wasn't always there, starts to appear, but you are able to kind of look at it at a little bit of a distance. It gives you some space to be able to say, oh, I see myself reacting in that way, and it actually isn't really working out anymore, and you have a lot more availability to be able to reframe and shift your thoughts around that experience. You might even find in some instances while microdosing that these triggering events or these coping mechanisms that you may have developed there's more of a choice. They're not happening on an automatic response. There's a time and a place to be able to just, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that I might be triggered, and maybe I can respond differently this time. Whereas without the psilocybin, it's very difficult to catch yourself midstream. And I mean, it takes a lot of practice, and it's completely possible. And with psilocybin, we have just more options. And so when you look at the science, there is a lot of information about how the mushrooms, the psilocybin, can activate a global neurological network that spans across the whole brain, giving you access to different thought processes and different functions, whereas without it, you're subjected to the default mode and the thoughts and patterns that already have neural pathways available, whereas psilocybin can create new neural pathways and new neural connections. This means that there's just more options, there's more doors open, and it gives you more of a chance to choose what you want to experience. And therefore, the more choice you have and the more decisions you decide to go in a different direction, the more chances you have to create new habits, to stop going down the same old pathway, to eliminate certain hamster wheels that you might always experience, and then decide, wow, actually, I don't need to experience that anymore. Now, this is a very big generalization, so take it with a grain of salt. Some things are deeper and have more intensity, so it's a lot harder to unravel yourself from, and some things are a little more lightweight and easy to do this work even without psilocybin. But psilocybin does have a physiological effect on the body and the mind and the entire nervous system that can really support you with your goals and with shifting out of old patterns.